Justice. Criminal charges have been filed against the 4 teens who streamed their despicable torture of a mentally disabled man on Facebook Live Tuesday afternoon. Jordan Hill, Tesfaye Cooper, and sisters Brittany and Tanisha Covington are each facing hate crime, kidnapping, unlawful restraint, and battery charges. The 18-year-old victim was friends with Hill, who picked him up on Saturday in what turned out to be a stolen van. After spending the next few days in the van, they drove to the Covington sisters' West Side home on Tuesday. It was here that a play fight escalated and the violence began. After being bound and gagged, the victim was beaten, taunted, and tortured for hours. He was also made to walk on all fours and forced to drink water from a toilet, and only escaped after the perps went to confront a neighbor who complained about the noise. The poor teen was so shaken by his ordeal he was hospitalized, but has since returned home to his family. Authorities sought hate crime charges because of the victim's mental capacity and the suspect's racist statements. And though many online blame the Black Lives Matter movement for the incident, no connection has been made by police. Still, there are others who have used the Black Lives Matter movement as an excuse for their attacks on white victims. Here's some of them. White high school student beaten up over pro-police comments. A 17-year-old Alabama high school student is recovering in a hospital after authorities say he was beaten up after a homecoming football game last Friday night. Police say witnesses said the attack may have stemmed from an argument at the school last week. The dispute was reportedly over pro-police content 17-year-old Brian Ogill was posting on his Facebook page. Authorities said a large group of students gathered in the parking lot of the Old Ace Hardware around 10 p.m. last week. Police believe one or more black teens then assaulted Ogill. When police arrived, they discovered the victim bleeding from his head. The teen was eventually airlifted to UAB Hospital, where he's in critical condition recovering from head injuries. His mother said he had his skull cracked open in a few places, as well as trauma to the brain.
Cops released video of veteran beaten in what he says was a racially motivated attack. Video just released by police shows a teenager punching Iraq War veteran Chris Marquez from behind as he leaves a McDonald's in Washington, D.C. Marquez is then seen struggling on the floor. The teenager appears to take some of his belongings while others kick him. Marquez, who served 8 years in the Marine Corps and was awarded the Bronze Star, suffered multiple cuts and bruises. He said his attackers surrounded his table and started arguing with him. They asked him if Black Lives Matter, and when he ignored them, they called him a racist. Marquez was treated at a hospital for head trauma and an eye contusion. DC police have identified 3 people as persons of interest in the crime and are seeking the public's assistance in identifying and locating them.
What you don't want to talk about regarding Mike Brown could get you beat up in St. Louis. A video was uploaded to Facebook Friday night showing a group of young black men assaulting a lone white passenger aboard the St. Louis light rail. The victim recalled details of the attack in an interview with KMOV News. One of the assailants asked the victim if he could borrow his cell phone. He then asked what he thought about the Mike Brown situation. The man declined both requests, prompting one of the other thugs to unleash a fury of sucker punches on the victim. The cell phone-less, not-so-civil rights conversationalist then threw a weak jab which was followed up by another round of swats and a kick from the first guy. The assailants leapt off the metro at Forest Park Station, but cops have these headshots which will hopefully be upgraded to official mugshots soon. What's also disappointing is the lack of action from other commuters who could even be heard snickering in the video. Some are calling this a hate crime. Do you think the violence was motivated by racial prejudice?
What is interesting is that this unfortunate incident has gone viral, but so do attacks that are done on people of color. That also goes viral too. What seems to be the trait is that for some unknown reason, when it comes to issues of race, he seems to attract a lot of haters. What this demonstrates and shows is that we still have a deep issue when it comes to race problems, which will never be resolved because the powers that be benefit from racial division. How would you run the world if blacks and whites got on? You couldn't. You couldn't control the masses unless you have division, racial division. And that is the reason why, unfortunately, there will never be race healing, because it goes against what the system wants. We survive under corrupt government who are hell-bent on staying in power, and they will do so at any cost. If black people and white people were to come together, there would be a revolution. So therefore, it is in the interest of high society to create this racial division. However, getting back to my point, so therefore, when it comes to race, it seems to attract a lot of haters. What's interesting in the first story, the white male who they claimed had slow difficulty or a mental problem, he was actually friends with one of the black perpetrators. When I first heard the story, I thought it was black thugs who went out and found a white victim and do him in. But they were actually friends. So it brings a lot of different perspective into this. How serious were they? Having been a black victim who knew the white people, would they have argued that it was a race matter or it wasn't? However, to chant Donald Trump as they were beating him and degrading him, as if Donald Trump being president is going to affect their lives. Taking one look at them, you can see that not even Wendy's or McDonald's would have employed any of them. They've probably never worked in their lives. So the idea that hitting this white victim because of Donald Trump being in power, that's not logical. In fact, a lot of thugs, whether black thugs or white thugs, who hardly hold down good jobs, they tend to use the race card. You think, hello, with or without the race card, how many of you actually hold down jobs? So these black thugs using Donald Trump as an excuse for their sickening violence. Whether Hillary was in power or Democrats, it would not change their lives. They're probably smoking cannabis. They're probably thieving every night. So it's a very poor excuse to use Donald Trump for their wicked and cowardly attack on their own white friend. The second story, which they claimed was a racial attack on another white male. The black men, or young black men, who asked the question, do you think Black Lives Matter? To go up to a complete stranger and ask that question, it seemed to suggest that these black men are not for the dollar. They're not all there. You don't go up to a stranger and ask, do Black Lives Matter? That is not the kind of a discussion that you go into. In fact, it's quite embarrassing. That someone of your own race could be so stupid, so thick, that you're going to go to a white person and ask, do Black Lives Matter? As if his words is going to make their day. His response is going to make their day. Anybody could ask me the question, do gay lives matter? And I could turn around and say yes, but I don't believe it. So it was quite childish for them to go up to him and ask, do Black Lives Matter? And he was quite right not to respond. Because if he had responded and said yes, maybe they would have said, how do Black Lives Matter? These black thugs were looking for trouble. So it doesn't matter what answer he had given to them, they were there to cause trouble. And I'm afraid in thuggish neighborhoods, whether white or whether black, when you are in a thuggish neighborhood, that is what you get. Thuggish attitude, thuggish behavior. They were simply thugs. It didn't matter how his response was. They still would have prompted more answers from him. They were looking for a fight. They were looking for trouble. And looking at the way they were dressed, underweight, skinny, lacking good food and vitamins, it's going to affect their mental status. It's going to affect the way they interact with civilized society. I remember visiting a certain area to get some products in, and it's a multicultural area. And what's interesting, the negative energy that exists in multicultural areas. If multiculturalism is the way forward, why do we have so much negative spirit, negative energy, negative vibes, anger, frustration? And it's nothing to do with poverty. Half these people have never even tried. That's what we're dealing with. Just sick human beings. Sick. I don't think racism is a factor here. I don't think racism is a factor because racism is very, very hard to prove. They made it that way. It's very hard to prove. You can prove homophobia. You can prove sexism. When it comes to race, it's very, very difficult, to prove it. As I said, the white person in the first story, he was actually friends with the 4 black thugs. He was friends with them. Was it a black person who was attacked by 4 white friends? Would they have argued it was race? If 2 people have a fight, a black and a white person, is it racial? So if a person said, oh, you nigger, or the black person turned around and says, you're white trash, does that make you racial? People say things in the heated moment. We gotta stop playing this race card, whether white or black. I know gay people who call each other faggots. Women call each other bitches. We're using these languages in order to just find excuses. It's a political weapon. Looking at the videos, I do not see any racism involved. In the last video, as I said, the guys are deranged. You don't go up to a stranger and you ask him, oh, what do you think of Black Lives Matter? That's absurd. That's stupid. I would never go up to a white person and ask, oh, do you think Black Lives Matter? What kind of stupid question is that? It's like you go to an interviewer, who happens to be the KKK, but he's not wearing a cape, he's wearing a suit and tie. And he said, oh, by the way, do you employ black people? Of course he's going to say yes. Or you go to a black person who doesn't like white people, and the white person goes for the job. Oh, do you employ white people? Of course they're going to say yes. People are trained to bullshit. In this political correctness age, people are trained to lie about their feelings. We've got to get this together. We've got to get it together. In this incident, the guys were stupid, asking the question, do Black Lives Matter? As if he's going to give an honest reply. Quite frankly, all lives matter. All lives matter. I have white friends. I have black friends. I have Indian friends. I even have gay friends, even though I don't agree with almost anyone, but I have gay friends. Their life matters to me. So effectively, technically, all lives matter. However, when it comes to the criminal justice system, I'm afraid it doesn't. But when it comes to humanity, all lives should matter. But when it comes to the police and the criminal justice system, quite fairly, it does not. Which is why, for rape trials, you have to have 7 women on a jury when it comes to dealing with rape. Even in the court of law, there's discrimination. A man could rape a woman and get away with it. And that's why feminists advocated to change that. Now, by law, you have to have 7 women sitting on the jury. So quite clearly, when it comes to the criminal justice system, all lives don't matter. How the hell these people become so professionals is beyond me. However, when it comes to humanity, from my perspective, all lives matter. My black friends, my white friends, my Indian friends, even my gay friends, their lives matter to me. No more than black people's lives.